Lionheart's podcast, where we dare to have moxie for what matters. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Julia, and we are your new loudmouth change-making do-gooder best friends, here to embolden you to take more action, risk, and heart towards creating a more just, equitable, and brave world.
So today we're going to be talking about losing followers to gain followers. If you're looking to build your audience on social media, avoid wasting time and energy, and focus on the most important strategies for your nonprofit, this is the episode for you. So Julia, it's going to get us started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about a time in your memory that reminds you of why it's important to focus on the people who support you most?
Yeah, so in 2006, I started a blog along with all the other new moms, and it literally blogging was just brand new baby thing. I remember having to tell so many people when I told them I started a blog what a blog was, because they had never heard of it before. So I know that's dating me, but we're doing that a lot in these podcasts.
I'm pretty sure I was one of those people. I was like, you're doing what?
Blog? I was like, it's like kind of like an online magazine. And they're like, oh, and that's how I used to describe it. But in those early days, and there wasn't tutorials, there wasn't people putting out, articles about how to have a successful blog. We were all just winging it. And, and I actually kept that blog up for almost 15 years. So
yep.
A lot of people ended up canceling theirs after like a year or two. And it's like Facebook got really, really popular, and they realized that was a really great platform to share things. But originally blogs were used to update family. Like, people would put a lot of personal stuff on there and only allow like access to their family. So it was kind of run like a Facebook is now, or like Instagram now. But now blogging is it's necessary for everyone. You even see like corporate, like 500 companies using blogging techniques for search engine optimization. So during that, I learned so much during those 15 years. And
I remember your blog kind of going through some iterations, right? It kind of started out as one thing, and then you would add in something else, and you were just kind of exploring yourself, and it didn't end up being just your family following you either.
No, actually it was really cool is to see how like at one point I was like one of the top scrapbooking bloggers out there. That was kind of my specialty. At first I just did like really random stuff, because I'm a creative person and I'm always creating. So I just put like random stuff on there all the time. And then I noticed a lot of people were coming there for more of my scrapbooking and more of my designs. And so I started hitting that pretty hard. And at one point I was like a top scrapbooking blogger, which was really, really neat. And but the thing I'd have to say, I feel like those 15 years of being a blogger and an influencer like taught me so much. Like, it was this complete crazy ever evolving platform that it is still today, but it's so much different today than it was originally. So I had to have a lot of growth along with that blog in order to stay like relevant and to stay, being able to monetize my blog. And one of the greatest lessons that I've learned from that kind of applies to our message today is about being bold. And as someone with a lot of anxiety and who overthinks everything, being bold is terrifying. I remember like posting just the simplest craft idea to do with like little kids, and like shaking with the send button, that somehow my craft idea would offend someone, because guess what, it did. Sometimes people it's crazy the opinions that people have on some of the simplest things. But I didn't let that stop me. That's like the most important thing, is that I kept it. So I did get a negative comment, and then I would be like, for the next couple of months, I wouldn't post most about that. I would try to post safer things. And then as the safer I got with my content, the less engagement I was getting, the less fulfilling it was for me too, on the personal side. And there were so many messages and there were so many things I wanted to share with people that I was so but I was too afraid to share it. And I needed to get a lot more comfortable with sharing those messages. So like one day I wrote this um, quite scandalous blog article. Probably wouldn't be considered scandalous today, but at the time for me, it was the most bold thing I'd ever written. And it was, based on parenting and being a creative and leaning into that and being proud of being a creative mom and not being the ideal mom that, this narrow-mindedness of what a mother should be, but like leaning into your own version of that. And that was a really, really scary blog post for me, and I saved it. I had that blog post probably a month, like before I got up the nerve to actually send it.
Yeah.
And what I hit publish, and within like 48 hours I had more comments than I had ever had before. I was connecting with women on this incredible level of so many other women that wanted to hear messages like that before. And that was like a really, really incredible starting point for me to create some really long-lasting virtual relationships with a lot of bloggers and influencers and just regular moms who I ended up being friends with probably for like another decade, because I was bold and I leaned into that and I said this scary thing. Also to note, there's some people who didn't like that article, but guess what? There was more people who did, and more people that I really wanted to connect with. And that risk versus reward, it was so rewarding because I was willing to rub a few people the wrong way and not connect with a few people. It helped me connect deeper with even more people. So I try to keep that lesson with me wherever I go.
Absolutely.
So Michelle, you've got a really interesting story about this too that I really, really love. So why don't you go ahead and share?
Yeah. So it like I wanted to kind of present just a little bit of a different um, perspective on our topic today, because I've always been really passionate about nonprofits and just social enterprises, organizations that are making sure that they're doing things for the world, in pursuing their mission and their purpose. And I got started in the nonprofit world when I was 24 years old. Um, I had never had like a corporate office job before, but I started working for a private school. They were hiring just an accounting assistant. I got hired and I walked in with complete rose colored glasses. I was working with um, a whole staff full of highly educated women, people with doctorates, master's degrees, people with multiple of those. And I talk about imposter syndrome,
Yes.
I walked in and I'm like, I haven't even been to college because I had, I had a kid at 18 and I became a mom and went to college for a few months and then had to get a job and support myself. So I was definitely felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. And I was already the mountain moving kind of person, but this experience really shaped me, at my perception of professional women, and women getting things done. Um, and there were so many great lessons, but being in the accounting office, I was at the center of the way that the money worked. And there were some things that just kind of didn't make sense to me sometimes. And the one thing that I remember kind of sticking out is we had this copier, this really expensive copier. It was a beast. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was like the Cadillac of copiers. And we ended up investing in that because our CFO had some experience working a print shop or some sort of a publishing office, and she was really savvy with design, and publishing, and being a nonprofit that held events where you're raising millions of dollars, in money for your cause. There's a lot of collateral that you've got to produce. There are brochures, there are um, letters, designs, invitations to events, all kinds of things. And, coming from a world where she had done design and printing professionally. It just made sense to her to be able to do that in house, to bring that in house, and to be able to manage that in house. Um, and unfortunately, the reality of how that ended up working out was she and I were the only ones who could use that copier for anything except for making a just a run of the mill copy of a worksheet, or just printing. And I was an accounting assistant, a bookkeeper, so design and presentation and printing were not really in my job description. And
Right.
we ended up buying all this really beautiful, expensive paper. And I just remember we would have these projects where you would print on this really expensive paper, and the people who were running the project, it wasn't the CFO, she had another job, would end up, running through a whole box of this really expensive stuff before they'd be able to get it worked out and working right. And so there was this idea that we were going to save money, and we weren't taking into account like all these extra hidden costs, the hidden cost of messing up, the hidden cost
Mm.
of the people who were doing the design work, learning the design programs. And it was a headache, I mean, I know that the girls that worked there really did their best, and we did have a couple of really talented design people. But it was such a headache, and it could have been something that could have been outsourced to somebody who worked on that every day, because the girls who were working on it, design was not their everyday thing. We
Mm.
worked in a private school, and there were a lot of different hats to wear, as there always is in every nonprofit.
Yes.
And the point of the story is really, we make these decisions in hopes of saving money and conserving our resources, and then we risk missing those hidden costs. And it comes back to this podcast that I listened to a couple years ago. It's NPR's Hidden Brain podcast. They have an episode called Tunnel Vision, and they talk about scarcity. And I don't like back then, I didn't know how to categorize what was happening, but when I heard this episode, it really kind of made me go, oh, this is what's happening, right? Um, you are in that tunnel, and you are super focused on what is inside that tunnel. And in the meantime, you're obscuring everything on the outside. And if anybody has time in the nonprofit world to go in and listen to the podcast, we'll include it in the show notes. And I highly, highly recommend it. That it's really centered around poverty or any kind of limiting experience in our life, and how that really changes our brain. They talk about in the beginning of the episode, just like, have you ever been really hungry and not been able to think about anything but food? And it's really that mindset where your brain goes into survival mode, your brain is in scarcity mode, and it has to super hyper focus on that thing that it needs. And how this applies to the greater topic that we're talking about today is really about how we kind of instill a bit of artificial scarcity in our nonprofit pursuits, especially when it comes to building our community of supporters and donors. And I label it as artificial scarcity because the only way to really counter this scarcity mindset is by cultivating your belief in abundance, your belief that there are enough people out there who will resonate with you. Because if you get into a mode where you are trying to um, attract and persuade a really large donor to be involved with your nonprofit, if that donor isn't in sync with you on your ethics and your energy and the way that you're trying to do things and the things that you believe in, you will end up moving away from the things that you're pursuing in order to try and attract this other kind of person. And it starts out really mild, but what you end up doing is, like, you get more and more afraid of upsetting somebody. Um
Well,
and
it's never good to make decisions when you're afraid or you're desperate or you're in scarcity mode. It never leads to good things.
Yes. And I think as nonprofits, because we have these very limited tools, and we have, it's not like a for-profit business. It's not where you go and build widgets and the widgets create income for you. You actually have two different um, branches of your business, one where you are fundraising and one where you are actually using those funds to do the things that you need to do. And it's an incredible act of spinning plates. It's an
Yeah.
incredible act of balance. And it can really put us in this mode where we think that if we don't do everything exactly right in this fundraising um, part of the business, then we're not going to be able to meet our goals. And if you get really hyper focused and you get that tunnel vision on not being able to fund the things that you're trying to do, your brain will kick into scarcity mode. It's not something that you intend to happen. It just does. Especially in a year, I worked at the school during the downturn in the economy. We were having to lay people off. We were losing students. We actually, looking back, did an amazing job of being able to weather that storm. But you have these outside things that happen, and suddenly you are realizing that money that you thought was going to come through doesn't get to come through because donors who had a certain situation, their situation changes, and now they don't have that money to be able to put toward your mission. So we need to really be intentional about countering scarcity within our organization, because it does limit your ability to make long-term decisions. When you're in scarcity mindset, you will make decisions for the short term. And nonprofit business is a long-term kind of projection business. You have to
Yes,
be
it
able
is.
to project out to 5 years, to 10 years. What are we going to do um, this far down the
The
line
long
to be
game.
able?
Yeah, you've got to be
Exactly.
playing the long game.
And the only really real way to do that effectively is to recognize that scarcity exists in all of our nonprofits, and that we can counter that scarcity by believing in abundance. There are 7.8 billion people on this planet,
Yes.
and we need to be able to believe that there is abundance out there. There are people who share in our beliefs. And there's gonna be shots fired here. We tend to think that we are very special, and we are. I'm not saying we're not special, but um, our online world has proven that we are not quite as special as we think we are. Advertisers can tell by the age that you are, the place that you live, things that you follow on Facebook, how you feel about certain things, and they can customize their advertising and marketing specifically to you. They can tell whether or not you are looking to have children. They can tell whether or not you have a dog, and they don't necessarily know that you have a dog. But a, among those 7.8 billion people, there are things that set those people, you know, on certain
Indicators.
paths, right,
Yeah,
and
there's
categorize
indicators,
them.
behavior indicators that they pick up on that leads to
Precisely.
that
These
algorithm.
are
Yes.
things that big companies know. These are things that big companies gamble their money on, because it's not gambling, it's a sure thing.
Yes.
And as nonprofits, we need to clue into the fact that that means there are plenty of people who think the way that we do. There are
Yes.
plenty of people, there are more people than we think who think the way that we do. And what we are doing is really, really valuable, because we're providing them that opportunity to get involved in something exciting and something that helps address needs that they see out there. Um, Being part of the rat race, being somebody who works in corporate America, you want to be more involved. But I know my feeling when I was not in the nonprofit was that I have to get to a certain level, and I have to be able to take care of my family, and I have to meet these basic needs before I can go outside of my community and look to be able to give back. And I really look forward to that part in my life. And Julia knows that this is definitely our the part where we fling ourselves off the cliff and help a lot of nonprofits be able to do that. But
A lot of nonprofits, they don't know the power of narrowing down,
yes,
narrowing down their audience and who they're going to appeal to, because they often come from that place of scarcity and lack of resources, and everyone's wearing a lot of hats and stuff like that. They're like, we just need to connect with as many people as possible. And the problem with that is when you appeal to everybody, you appeal to no one. You're not actually
yes,
getting anybody's attention. And we want to help you guys be able to narrow down your audience so your audience sees your branding and your messaging and your content. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. I see myself
yes,
in their dream supporter, in their dream donor. That's me. I could totally do that, you know? And
absolutely.
so, and if you're being too broad with your audience and you're representing too much of a broad audience, that supporter, that's just going to go right over their head. They're not going to see it. They're going to be blind to that kind of content. That's not how you are bold. And nonprofits, out of anybody, you guys don't have time not to be bold. You don't have the
Yeah,
resources to mess around and appeal to everybody. You just don't. So you got to find that niche. You got to find your audience, and it's so important. So Michelle,
absolutely.
tell us why it is so important to be willing to lose followers. Tell us, why is that so key?
If you are not willing to drive away the people who don't truly support you, who don't truly connect with your mission, then you are not holding space for the people who will become contributors and who will support your mission and your purpose. It can feel like, well, I'm not so sure that this person isn't the kind of person who would want to. It feels like um, it really can feel like being very optimistic about your audience, but we have to kind of try and uncover the way that we um,
Like, hold space for them. Like, you only have so much time in a day, right? You only have so much
yeah,
time in a day, and if you're the kind of charity that is donor centered, that means you're engaging with your donors regularly. That means someone in your team is engaging with them. That's a lot of time, right? What if
absolutely.
they're spending that huge chunk of time engaging with donors that aren't your dream donors,
Yeah,
that aren't actually going to be with you long time, that aren't going to be putting, 10 years from now, they're going to be gone onto, the next trendy cause, so you've got to connect with the ones that really connect with your cause and spend that time fostering that relationship. So it saves you time, it saves you resources,
yes,
and also, another really cool thing that a lot of people don't realize is that it's actually fosters a lot of trust in the supporters you do have. When you
absolutely.
really narrow down your messaging and you're not afraid to say some bold things, to say some controversial things, please say controversial things. Your
Yes.
supporters love it. They eat that stuff up. So and if your supporters see you saying like controversial things and they know that you're willing to lose other supporters, like, what's more clear than like, this is where we stand? It's so transparent. This is where we stand. You stand with us. Like, that is a magnet.
Yes.
And that builds so much trust. They're willing to lose some of these other people because this is so important to them. And as a
It can be
nonprofit,
something that
yeah,
signifies progress, signifies somebody who gets things done, right? If you're willing to say the right thing to the right people, even if it's the wrong thing to some people, you're somebody who's going to get things done, and you're gonna see how trust weaves into every aspect of your marketing and the campaigns that you develop. People want to be able to contribute to things that are actually going to make a difference. And if you can stand up and say, like, hey, we're going to do this. And we're not saying to be like a shock jock and just go out there and say controversial things for the sake of saying controversial things. We're
Yeah.
saying don't operate from a place of fear, operate from a place of abundance. Know that people will see you
Mm,
as a leader, they will see you as somebody who is pursuing your mission, your vision. And if the mission and vision resonate with people, that's not the last step to getting them on board. You have to resonate with the cause, but then also you have to believe that people that you're going to be able to give your money to somebody and that that's going to make a difference. Because when you're somebody who doesn't work in a nonprofit, when you're somebody who's going to be that collaborator, that supporter, you don't want to be giving your time to people who can't be effective, because you can't be effective. You're already dealing with the not being able to be effective thing. So trust is so important, and being able to boldly say what you're going to do and why you think it's important, and not really be as afraid of offending certain people are going to trust you in that. It comes back to a point that my mother-in-law told me the other day. She said, a coach once told me, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say
yeah.
the right thing to the wrong person. So remember that, and just kind of hold that, and know that there are people here who are rooting for you,
I
and
will.
try to be a little bit more courageous in some of your messaging. Um,
Another misconception about appealing to a wide audience is like that's going to get you a lot of followers, and therefore that goes into like more donations, and as actually very inaccurate information.
yeah,
And what a lot of companies are finding, that followers can mean nothing. There's so many ways to generate followers that are not authentic followers, or are the wrong kind of followers, the kind of followers that are just there for your giveaway, who are just there for other things besides getting involved in your cause and actually supporting it. You can also pay for followers. There's people who there's entire companies that have like these little bots that will create little accounts and stuff like that, and you can pay these companies to have a whole bunch of bots puff up your number. I mean, like, and that's not going to get you one single donation, right?
yeah.
So we actually we actually do not encourage people to get followers anymore.
To
We
pay for
encourage,
followers, yeah.
yeah, we encourage engagement. Engagement is the number one thing you want to see on your social media. And engagement is the real indicator of how you're connecting with your audience. So be looking for things like comments, the amount of comments on your blog post, and the amount of likes and the amount of shares, the amount of people signing up for your email list. Those are all way more important than your follower number. So yeah, definitely be doing that. So how can the right supporters help you be more effective? And that's first, to be more effective, you got to be bold and authentic in your positioning. You got to take a stance on key issues. Be thinking like what kind of new things your followers are thinking about, what's trendy in the media, what are people talking about, what kinds of stances do people want to hear about. Be one of the first people to get in there and stand up for a movement or a cause, even if it's not your own, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, just be connecting them with that way. Also be unapologetic about your positioning, like be fierce and bold in it and live it, and like it's just this badge of honor to stand in this controversial way, because your audience, for your do good or cause, like that is going to resonate with them the most. They want to see someone be brave. They're tired of feeling like a victim. They're looking
Yes.
for a hero, and they want to be a hero with you. And then the things that you achieve is that clear messaging, and it helps you be more relevant, and like you're connecting with your audience on a real time, and you're being a part of issues that are important to them in the now. And most importantly, that deep connection. You are building a relationship with them long term. This is a long-term game. If you are involved in a marketing team that is telling you that in a couple of months they're going to double your social media, that is a red flag. That is
Yeah.
a super red flag. Run. Do not work with those people, because they are lying, because everybody knows it's a long term gain. It's a relationship. You don't get a best friend in 5 minutes. Okay. That's, you have to build that thing. And that's
Yeah.
the exact same way with social media. So, Michelle, do you have any more takeaways for us as we kind
Yeah.
of wrap this up?
Yeah. Just, hold that space for the people who are your true supporters. Remember that you are offering them a valuable opportunity to be involved in change. And the people who don't work in nonprofits, the people who, commute every day and are really doing what they can to make sure that they put food on the table and put a roof over their head. They're not um, uninterested in being involved. They just want a really trustworthy way to be involved, and being able to take advantage of these strategies of being able to narrow down your followers by being less afraid. Um, will deepen that connection with them. It's great, and we're not going to argue that it's fabulous to have 10,000 followers, but it's not very nice to have 10,000 followers and 10 people who will show up for you. And it is absolutely fantastic to have 10,000 followers and have 1,000 of those who will mobilize for you at any moment, because they see the merit in getting involved in your organization because they know that you're the kind of person who's going to push for the kind of change that they want to see in the world. You're giving people permission to be bold, and you're empowering them to do big things. And hey, bonus, you actually get to do big things too while you're doing that.
That one resonates with me the most, because I just think, like, when I think of you and I and what we're trying to do, like, we just regularly give each other permission to do big and brave things and to be our most authentic self. And like, your followers and people, your supporters, they want the same thing. They, like, when they see you being brave and they've got this desire to make social change, like, you give them permission to make that social change too. And as a leader, and as a nonprofit, and as a charity leader, like, it's your responsibility to inspire all your other little do-gooder supporters and stuff. So be doing that regularly.
Yes. Yes. Be audacious. Don't be
Audacious, I
afraid.
love it.
Don't be afraid of people who don't think, who think that being quiet is it's meritorious to be quiet. You don't need to be quiet. Be audacious, be bold, give other people permission. People will want to join you in that journey.
Oh, I think there's, like, that kind of reminds me of this little quote, and I'm gonna butcher it, and it's not the actual quote, so forgive me, but someone had said something about, like, scream at the top of your lungs so that you give all the other rising generation the space for their voices.
Yes.
We have a responsibility here. So
Yes.
yeah, lean into that. All right, Michelle, do you have a good do-gooder feature of the month? Do you have something to talk about there?
Yeah, so we're going to start featuring a nonprofit each month. And so we're going to mention them month long during each of our episodes. So and we're really, really hoping that they will potentially want to join us, and we'll be able to interview them in one of our episodes and kind of talk about what they're doing and how exciting that is. So in order to do that, we need some nonprofits. So we're really asking that anybody listening to our podcast go ahead and nominate in our comments a cause that's really near and dear to you, somebody you would love to see get a little pump up from us, and we will start doing that next month. So we're excited. Um, Also, we're going to sign off today with a hype up message that really is a little bit of a throwback to some of our last sentiments. And Julie was adamant that I share this quote. It is my favorite quote, and it has been really empowering for us in being able to give us the courage to move toward our dreams and our goals. And this is a quote by Marianne Williamson, and it's going to be familiar to a lot of you, but maybe you haven't heard it all the way through, and we're going to do the whole thing here. So, the quote is, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so that's a note that we would love for you to just spend some time thinking on. Remind yourself how cool the things that you do on a daily basis are, how valuable it is to be able to share that with other people who don't have the bandwidth or the resources to be able to be doing this full time. And remember to just, hold space for those people who need to be in it with you. Those people who are going to be your raving fans, who are going to cheer you on, who are going to thank you for letting them be a part of it. Keep that in mind.
Among Lionhearts is a socially conscious marketing agency where we specialize in social media management and influencer marketing for the unique needs of social enterprises and charities. Let our team of experts manage your social media workload for you so you can get back to doing more good. Remember, every small act of courage, no matter how small, it's not actually small at all. You, my dear, are standing among Lionhearts.